So yeah, when I was in school, I loved the theatre, yeah, from a very young age. This is prior to knowing anything about hip hop, yeah. And the theatre for me was a great context because I was able to dance, sing, play music, and sometimes draw things as part of set, yeah? So already the elements were in me already, you know what I mean? So when I first discovered hip hop culture, which was in like '82, prior to that I'd heard the music from the Sugar Hill Gang, but I didn't necessarily interpret that as hip hop or a culture. It was a disco track with rhyming over it, which was exciting for me, and I tried to learn the whole rap and stuff, and it was an impressive thing to do. That was one of the things that I think was the key thing about my understanding of hip hop. It was impressive, you know what I mean? To speak fast was dope, you know what I mean? To rhyme and think of clever stuff, you know, that was really cool. And the dance, for me, when I first saw it on a documentary called Arena, I saw this rapid movement of legs on the floor. And I'd seen it standing up before, but went to see it on the ground. As a 12-year-old kid, that was just amazing to me. And that was exactly what a 12-year-old kid would want to do, get dirty, you know, on the floor. So all of these things were happening simultaneously while I was still in my theatrical practice. I just didn't realize they could come together. I ended up training at the London Contemporary Dance School, yeah? It was around the time of the late 80s when in England, and I think it happened in New York, hip hop seemed to go out of fashion, yeah? The explosion that happened in the early 80s kind of just died out in the mid 80s, and there was nothing to respond to. But rap got much bigger. I wanted to still keep my creativity, so I ended up going to London Contemporary Dance School, training classical ballet, contemporary dance. And it was in that time period that I realized that this technique wasn't speaking in the accent that physical language would make sense to me. What did make sense was the context, the theatre, but I needed to return back to my original movement language for that to then make sense. So I'm sorry I'm taking time to get there, but I really think it's important to get the roots of how it come into being. When I made my first show, Lyrical Theatre, in 1994, that I called Hip Hop Theatre, actually I made a piece called Silence the Bitchin'. And it was basically a spare rhyme that I had, and I graphically illustrated each line of the rhyme with a movement. So it was mimetic and sometimes just rhythmical. I think you guys saw that. Sorry, Quick and Rockefeller, they saw
Loved
that
it.
years ago, yeah?
PS 122, I think.
Yeah, there you go. And yeah, so from that, I just realized that instead of having these polarized entities, which was hip hop and contemporary dance, I thought there was something in the middle at first. I thought it was in the middle. Then I realized it was hip hop within a different context, within a theatrical context, looking at the proscenium arch as the space in which we express the culture, not necessarily just the circle. And I started touring that work in the late 90s around UK, and not many other people were exploring these ideas. I felt lonely, as a matter of fact, until I started touring Europe. And in France, they've got a very healthy hip hop in the theatre scene. Also in Holland at the time. So as a result of that, I wanted to kind of express to England at first that this isn't me on my own. I'm not crazy. Yeah, there's a whole community of people that understand that these techniques can be theatrical. So Alistair Spalding, who was at the Queen Elizabeth Hall at the time, he booked one of my shows, Aeroplane Man, and he said, I told him that we should do a hip hop theatre festival. He said, That was literally what he said. So I thought we'd forget about it. He got the job at Sadler's Wells, chief executive, and the first thing he did was called me and said, Johnsy, let's do this festival. 2004, and basically it was an incredible event. We had the Electric Boogaloo, we had Vagabond Crew, we had Tommy the Clown, we had a load of European acts, we had Rennie Harris, we had Benji Reed from the UK, we had an incredible program. It was my wish list. We got 5-star reviews in all the broadsheets. We sold out on our first day. Since then, we've just been killing it, man. 5 national tours and 2 international ones, starting right here at the Harlem Apollo 2013. That's that. I had to compress the last 12 years.
I think theater was like the next thing, because I grew up right on 112th Street, right here in Madison Avenue, Taft Projects, and hip hop was emerging as I was emerging. So if I was 8 years old, 10 years old, hip hop was just around me. People were just doing it. It wasn't even called hip hop. It was just something that I ran into when I went to the bodega or happening in my cafeteria in school. And so, like, hip hop was just a part of me. But as Jonesy just said, like, it started to change. And I'm really fast forwarding. When hip hop became really, really gangster, like, I couldn't kick rhymes in the staircase because I never, like, held a gun. I never sold or pushed any kilos. So, like, how was I gonna participate in a rhyming cipher? And I don't even know Tech 9 from I don't, you know? So I dropped out from trying to be an MC, and I didn't want to dance because the music was all like, throw your guns in the air and buck. And so the atmosphere wasn't really nice for dancing either. So I was kind of like lost a bit, and house music was picking up, Latin freestyle, which if you're a New York City native and you're Latino, you know what that is. So I was kind of shifting lanes a little bit, but I still love my hip hop, and whenever there's a birthday party or something, or someone's like, oh, it's a talent show, I was there doing whatever dance I could do. I started dancing on the street for money because my boyfriend was a hitter, which is, you know, the guys that put the buckets out. Not like you see now on the subway. That's a whole different incarnation of hitting, and props to them. But I started to dance on the street, and the guys I was dancing with were doing breaking and popping, which at that time was not being done anywhere. Nobody cared if you could do it in an audition. Please don't do it at my party, right? Quick, people had said, like, you know, Ken Swift, or Quick, when they would dance at a party or a club, people would throw ice cubes on them. Like, please stop doing that old dance. That dance is played out. So it was a hard time because you had to let go of what you kind of mastered or what you loved. But I was just shifting, you know? And from dancing on the street, I ran into Quick Step, who started to break down hip hop as a culture. And I always tell people, like, to that point, hip hop to me was smoking weed and drinking 40s and hanging out. That's it. I had no depth of it. And so when Quick started to say, you know, there's elements and there's roots and there's, you know, Zulu and all this stuff, I was like, wow, tell me more. And he had already been part of something that was going to be the very first hip hop theater production called So What Happens Now at PS 122. But I was still, right, hitting on the street. I was still not having real access to that. I had never had acting. I had never, you know, been to any type of theater, nothing, not even dance classes, because my parents had no money to pay for dance classes. And so, but luckily hip hop you could just learn right there. Like, whatever you're doing, I can watch it, and maybe I can remix it and take you out. You know, that was the point of it all. But it was after meeting Quick Step that he was like, you know, come and check out this thing that I'm doing. And then there was an audition. He was like, come and audition. They're looking for girls who do old school hip hop. And so I went and I made the audition. And like, you know, the chauffeur drove off and we never looked back. You know, it was like, I can't tell you how grateful I am that theater opened its doors to hip hoppers, because really it was the next plateau of freedom. Because up until then, record labels, MTV, it was telling us how to do hip hop. Like, I would go to an audition and they would be like, you know, we're gonna do 3 pirouettes and pirouettes. Like, we don't do that in the projects. Like, we just dance, and if we turn, we do 1 spin, you know, and then we land and we're like, you know, pumping, whatever. And so I feel like it was the next natural progression for me to go into that, because I had been to open mics for the spoken word when all of that was coming up, and I was hitting, so I was learning breaking and popping, and once running into this audition and touring with this company called Get Original, that was the group that did Jam on the Groove, like my mind was blown. And I really felt like there was freedom there. You could write the script. You could choreograph. You casted who you thought was important for this story. And so I was like, yeah, this is the next, you know, natural progression of it. You know, so that's in a nutshell, you know, how I came to that. But, you know, it has its challenges too. I'm a woman, you know. Theater is gonna always, you know, give you certain parameters. And I'm coming in with my hip hop parameters, so it's like this constant, you know, it's like a shifting, like a give and take. But when it's good, you know, and I've seen so many amazing artists flourish in hip hop that probably would not have had a career otherwise. And so, you know, thank God for that.
1990, I think it was, an album came out by a group called Leaders of the New School.
Yeah.
Some people talk about Biggie and Tupac as being old school, yeah. Yet they were a good decade after. It's 5 or 6 years. So for me, I struggle to understand what old school and new school means now, and I like to look at it as a continuum. Just because I think we're there now, do you know what I mean? It's here to stay. And we can look at the different generations within hip hop. Maybe you could mark them by certain records that come out, or certain moves that developed, or certain events that happened, do you know what I mean? But I struggle to look at old school and new school. I think generations, you can look at first generations, and I'm really happy to be able to connect with Grandmaster Kaz and the legendary Twins, who have spoken a lot about that generation, and that was 1973. So, and then just to see the next epochs of time, how Rocksteady Crew then almost brought the culture to the world, you know what I mean, break it. And then that was another generation, do you know what I mean? And yeah, I think with rap as well, it's quite clear that there's a development. I think that the industry though, when they propelled rap as the one thing that was gonna define hip hop, I think that's when things started to go askew. So yeah, I think it's a continuum and it's going to change. Right now, I think we're seeing a resurgence of original hip hop values coming back. None so much as breaking convention being here, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely a good sign that you're here, because I think maybe 20 years ago, it wouldn't have happened because people weren't as enamored with the old school. I just know that I lived through it and I saw that people did not care. Not only did the industry not care, our community, that next generation did not want to see it, did not care. They were doing what's next. And what's next was street jazz. But in direct response to the street jazz in the industry was people doing other dance styles. You know, when you look at the Running Man, right? Which was happening at the same time as pirouettes and auditions. You know, it's that next generation saying, no, this is how we get down now. And each iteration of it, right after that, maybe the Harlem Shake, right after that, flexing, you know, bone breaking. And there will be something next. And so, you know, right now there's a prominent studio culture, and it's great. People are getting paid, and that's great. But you know, there is also that underground, like he said, that underground community that is like, well, this is my voice. This is how I dress. This is how we get down. And so each generation is going to have its manifestation of their hip hop And me as an older person, especially when I go into high schools to teach some of these teenagers, I gotta embrace them first. I gotta bring it down, bring myself down and be like, hey, how you do that move? You guys are doing the, whatever, the D-Lo shuffle, or you're doing, Little Man Anthem, show me. The Nene, show me. And then I look all weird trying to dance, and they're laughing at me. And then I go into a head spin, and they're like, oh, right? And then now we can have this, we can break bread, but I have to embrace them because that voice that they have is that voice that I had. And my voice was just trying to tell people, I'm good, please respect me, give me a chance. And that's what they're still saying, because we're still not getting a chance. And there's still a lot of anxiety in our community, a lot of police brutality. There's just still a lot of injustice that we're trying to step over and beyond. The Million Man March just happened. We are still trying to get it together. And so there are different generations of hip hop, and I just want to connect and let them know I was you. And if you're lucky, you can be me later, if you're lucky. But it's hard. It's really hard.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trying to find my word in English now.
Yes, thank you.
So I made hip hop, I think, when I was 6, because before I used to dance other style like African dance and modern, and my parents and my brother used to listen disco and funky music, but not hip hop because I was too young for that. And one day, my old brother came with a cassette, this precious cassette. Where in this cassette there is two movies, Breaking and Big Street. Only these 2 movies, because in France we don't have we didn't have channel like MTV or this kind of channels. We don't have it back in the day.
Yes.
So when he played the cassette, everybody was here, all my family, we watched this movie and we were like, wow, what is this? First of all, I want to be Shabadoo. I want to dance like him, and I want to be in Rock City Crew, because I want to do like a crazy leg move. And we only have these 2 movies. There is no internet, no nothing. So we used to play again and again and again these 2 movies. And I remember that the first time that I saw the movie Breaking, I knew that I will be a dancer. I will be a choreographer. This is what I want to do. And even if I was good at school, but I knew that this was my way. This was my way, dancing and stage. And now I will give the microphone to Lisbeth, because Alors, le théâtre, la première scène que j'ai faite, j'ai fait jeune. C'était quoi pour moi?
So, as for the theaters, she said that she started early. She was maybe 14 years old, something like this, because we used to have a teacher that was coming from Paris to the suburbs, because we live in the suburbs in Paris, and he taught us some moves, and he was so much into theater, so he was like, okay, now girls, you're ready. You can go on stage and do your thing. So that was her first experience. Mais quand est-ce que tu as pensé à toi-même?
À moi.
Comment ça s'est passé? C'était Breaking Bleu. And her first experience with stage was at Breaking Convention, like in 2012, with another piece which was called Blue, and it was kind of the same topic that she's now performing. But she wasn't a choreographer. She was only a dancer, so she was only interpreting something someone told her. But now, when she came back with this piece, which is Images, now she was more involved into it, because she evolved with that first piece Blue on Breaking Convention in 2012, and then after that she learned that she needed to express something. Dis-moi si je me trompe. And she learned that she was able to dance and to choreograph by herself.
For me, personally, I started off in Bird Gang Dance Company. My dance company we started off more as a crew and didn't really have aspirations to go into hip hop theatre. So it's something that kind of came about, 4 or 5 years ago, kind of through osmosis. It was quite a natural progression because I trained as an actor and graduated about 5 years ago. My work naturally seemed to take a more theatrical route because I've always been interested in telling stories and making stories and kind of painting pictures, and the only way that I can is physically through dance and movement because that's what I enjoy. So it wasn't really a deliberate thought or something planned where I wanted to go into hip hop theatre. It's just something that naturally people started telling us, your work is hip hop theatre. It's not hip hop dance in its traditional sense. So yeah, that's how it kind of came about. Really.
Was that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, as long as I can create in the way that I want to, or the visions that I see, as long as I can create, I don't mind what it's called, if I'm completely honest. Hip-hop theatre is a great way to term it because essentially those are the two things that I'm blending, but within that there's so many subcategories. You could spend all day trying to define really what exactly it is. But I think hip-hop theatre is the most concise way that I know of to define what I think we do and what I think everyone on this stage probably does. We all stand on the shoulders of some giant somewhere. We all blend one thing with another because that's how creation works. One thing can't change without another catalyst to come in and blend with it to then make something new.
For me, hip-hop is everything positive. Everything positive, like family, because with hip-hop, because of hip-hop, I meet some beautiful person, and I create my second family with because of hip-hop, and it's dance too for me because I leave hip-hop when I wake up. I think dance, but I don't think ballet or classical things. I think hip-hop freestyle, locking, popping, all these things, and I think I can't live without dancing and without listening hip-hop music and think hip-hop. For example, there are some value.
Yes.
Value, peace, unity, and having fun. And without these three things, I would be not me, because I'm really peaceful, really peace and unity. It's really important for me. And family, it's the base for me. I can't live without my family. And have fun. If you don't have fun, you will be sad like this. So I think these three values mean everything. So for me, so I will say that hip hop means everything's positive.
Thank you.
For me, and community, there's never been a place or a time where I felt excluded from anything, or because I don't do it exactly the same way that you do something, that I therefore don't belong. I think hip hop worldwide is so inclusive, and that's why it's been part of why it's been so successful, is because anyone from any country can come and learn things, and their contribution will be celebrated in some way. And I think that doesn't go for all other artistic forms as well. And also the celebration of creation of something new. Hip hop has lasted for so long, and I think will last for so long in its various kind of incarnations, because it always celebrates what comes along new. What can you add that's different to what we did, rather than you must conform to our rules and our rules alone. What can you add? There's this fresh new way to do this or that or whatever. then okay, from that, someone else will then build on that, and then someone else will build on this and that, and the whole thing spreads. So it's kind of like a really good virus. Kind of spreads everywhere.
The plague.
If I speak from my own experience, I'd say that the underground existed within rap and also in the social dances like the Running Man, the Cabbage Patch and stuff. So I still think that hip hop dance was still there. But the raw, difficult parts of the culture, the parts where you have to train real hard, I think they were kind of sidelined. And I don't know if that had anything to do with creating an easy accessibility into it, or simplifying it. Do you know what I mean? But I do think that where the rap side of the culture is concerned, Public Enemy, they were huge. Yeah, they were like hitting top 5 in national charts in England, probably around the world. Yeah, and I think that created a particular dynamic of unity and resistance. You know, I'll never forget Public Enemy. You know, there was very much about black power. Coming to the UK, one of the last times they came through, and it was all white people in the audience pumping their black fists in the air. Yes, and for me, I think when that happened, I think that it was maybe dangerous to where we are today. Yeah, with this complete imbalance in the distribution of wealth and power, and this oversensitivity to almost like an apartheid, you know, Islamophobia, Black Lives Matter, you know. There was a time where hip hop almost promised us a way out of that. And I still think, when I talk about underground, that still exists on the underground. You know what I mean? We're not looking at each other for your religion, your colour, your ethnicity. You know what I mean? We're looking at what you've got. You know what I mean? What you've got. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter where you're from. In any big hip hop jam that you go to around the world, you will see a completely multi-ethnic environment there, and everybody connected with this hip hop culture. So I think that was promised, and that was manipulated and thrown into a different direction that, for me, has resulted in a genocidal energy that has just almost pushing the prison industry, you know, with young people thinking that they've got to be gangsters and sell drugs and stuff. Yeah, I think all of what's been promised, like what Antoinette is saying, I think that there's lots of distractions that have come into that.
Hip-hop and everything has gone through, I look at myself and the things that I've gone through, right? And so when I first came on the scene, right, I wanted to be tough, I wanted to be the best, right? My ego was this big. As I got better, I made some stupid decisions. I rolled with some bad company, and then I found myself alone, and I had to ask myself, where am I going? And if I'm gonna continue to self-destruct, or if I'm gonna return back to the original rock, the Anna, right? Return back to her. And I think that hip hop went through that same thing. And I think that when it first came out on the scene, it was really in love with itself. It went across the planet and was like, hey, look at what these poor black people are doing. You can do it too, be free. And the money kept coming, and so it kept being in love with itself. And it lost track, the way teenagers do, right? You lose track of things, and made some pretty bad decisions. And it had to have like some sort of a reflection, like a retrospective, and say, oh wow, what happened to the original me? And then it started to say, oh, we gotta respect the things that made this what it is. And so, you know, I think it was bound to go through this dip. I think we all go through a dip. We get ahead of ourselves, we get kind of distracted, we're, you know, flattered by our image in the mirror, pictures that come out. But then we're like, oh wow, I've got to take care of that next generation. Oh wow, I'm a role model. Oh, I got money, I gotta do this. So I think that hip hop just had to go through that dip, and it's still going through a dip, but there's a larger consciousness that is saying, oh no, we have to protect this. We're gonna protect this. This is not gonna go the same way that rock and roll and jazz has gone. We are gonna make sure that we take it back and we hold on to it. If you wanna go do something with it over there, go do it. Hollywood, you go. Go do it. But we're taking care of our peoples. And so I think that when I look at the dark ages, like we call it, you know, when everything turned, it had to happen so that then we could really value what it is and what it can do. So, you know, when I look at the radio, you know, and what they're choosing to play, when I think about the TV, you know, that TV show Love and Hip Hop, I'm like, that's serving a purpose. And then there's all this underground stuff that's happening that's serving a higher calling. So you gotta, you know, grow with it. And I think that's what hip hop does. It really teaches you about yourself. You know, I think Quickstep always says break beats and break dance, it breaks you first. It breaks you down. And then if you really want this, you can have everything, you can have it all. But you gotta break down a little bit of that rebellious, arrogant person that you become when you start to get some fame.
Don't lie to yourself. Just be you. It's okay. But I will try to say in English. I know that back in the day it was hard for me to accept myself like as a black woman. Black. Not black only, but with this really dark skin. Because I was young and I listened to some person with stupid joke, and for them it was just a joke, but for me it wasn't a simple joke. And I had myself into hip hop. I give all myself into hip hop. Training, be the best dancer, and yes, something like that. And I think hip hop helped me to grow up and be a woman and accept my skin, because when I remember when I used to go to the party, nobody cared about the color. They cared about what you're doing. She's good, she dances good. But they don't say, oh, this black girl, or this Arabic girl. No, she just said, this girl, she's good. She rock. And they help, this kind of things help me to accept myself like, as a black woman. That's why we did this piece called Images, because I think it's important for other black women, even I won't say just black women, but other dancers, other women to accept themselves, because we are all different, and it's this difference to makes the hip hop grow. And
well, I guess part of it at this stage in our career is about availability, who you can afford sometimes. Obviously, there's always people that we would love to work with, but you know, circumstances won't allow for some reason. I find personally, I get an energy off of someone that I tend to, or I tend to unknowingly gravitate towards people that share, either are like-minded to me and have either a similar vision or something that will work well with my vision. And I don't know, it's one of those kind of strange universal things that people gravitate into your life sometimes, you don't know why. And then, you know, later on down the line, in hindsight, you can realize why. I aim to work with people who are creative, who are try to push boundaries, especially within the hip-hop theatre domain, who try to... One of my main things is for hip-hop theatre to be taken seriously, which might sound strange, but I know certainly in the UK, in terms of funding and in terms of the mainstream, it's not taken seriously. It's seen as something that is for light entertainment. You see some people spinning on their head, doing a backspin or a backflip or whatever it is, and that's it. It's good for kids to watch, but it's not really to be taken seriously. It's not really to be funded. It's not really for use in the theatre. And gradually that is changing, and people like John Z and Breaking Convention have really done so much, and you know, the Harlem Apollo as well, have done so much to really break down those preconceptions of what hip-hop is and what it's supposed to be, and especially in the theatrical way. Contemporary and ballet, for example, are always, or often anyway, seen as something that adults can go and watch and understand on an adult level. Hip-hop very rarely is, unless it's in a more explicit adult way, which is fine, but we want to discuss adult topics in hip-hop too, and for it to be listened to and taken seriously. And so that's what I personally aim to do. And in the same way that there are so many rappers who speak consciously and speak about things that are really important, and yet the rappers often that we see promoted are doing the complete opposite. And it's not that they don't exist, it's just what's being pumped around the world through all these different mediums is one specific sort of hip-hop. So when you ask people what hip-hop is, or what they think it is, they will come out with that, because that's all they're seeing. So of course they're going to assume that hip-hop is this and it promotes this, but they don't see the rest of the iceberg underneath the water that's completely different. And so it's just, for me, it's about kind of letting people see that this can be a mode of telling a grown-up story, or something that means something with a message, rather than that money is our God and that money over everything and whatever else is spoken about. Not that I don't like that stuff as well. Sometimes, you know, I'll be in the club and I hear a song and I'm like, no.
Time and place for that.
But not all the time. And especially if that's not what the rest of the world thinks, that that's all you do. And that's all you can do. And that's where it gets dangerous, I think. So I try to not do that, basically.
But there's a part of hip-hop that's not inclusion, and it's not peace and unity and having fun. And I need to get that out there, because we can't romanticize this, you know? And so there are battles that happen that are not happening in a cipher. It's happening here. It's happening with resources, you know? I know a lot of talented people who could be in a theater or could be touring just their own dance show, but there's obstacles and there's competition. And so I just want to at least put that out there, that hip-hop dance theater is not any different than hip-hop itself, and that there is that element that sometimes just doesn't like you, no matter how good you are, and you still have to continue to create and do what you do. And like she said, and love yourself, because it is a big world, and yet so many of us are, like, we believe that we have to fight for crumbs. And so that's a hard thing to eliminate from our psyche, from the back of our head, because from the moment you are raised, you know, you are prepared to starve or steal. And so hip-hop does have this thing sometimes that it sabotages us, because we are acting as if we're desperate. And I've got to get this, and I've got to get that. And so I think that, especially in America, when we are desiring to have all the, you know, gold and whatever in the cars, and money, sometimes we don't behave like peace, unity, and having fun, and we don't behave like it's all inclusive. And so there are some pockets of hip hop that, you know, whether it's hip hop education or it's, you know, hip hop theater or just hip hop itself, where we really have to show and prove, we really have to battle and win if we want to eat. And so I just want to make sure that we don't romanticize this too much, because it is rough still today, you know. So I just have to say that.
Of course.
You know, when I first started to learn how to break, I wanted to even the score that I felt was imbalanced against my mother's, my mother, I have one mother, my mother, rest in peace, my aunts, my cousins, my sisters. So anybody who saw me break back in the day saw a really fierce, fiery, in-your-face, feisty girl, angry, and taking, like, you know, take no prisoners, make no friends. That has changed, you know, because I realized, like, that's not gonna get me anywhere. You know, I can have a sword and a knife, and I'm not gonna really change the planet, you know? So I had to change my approach, but that was who I was from the beginning. And any man who tried to, you know, kick me out the circle, elbow me so I wouldn't get in, they'd have a problem, you know? Because I was trying to even out what I felt was unfair and unjustified treatment of the women in my life. And I wasn't gonna take it, you know? So that's, from day one, that's who I was. Consciously letting you all know women are powerful, we're strong, we're here, respect us. And I'm not behind you, underneath, I'm right beside you.
Yes, it is.
And when you have beef, I'm right here with you. You know, I can fight right there with you. When I started to do, you know, open mic, spoken word, there it was again, speaking truth to power. I was caught up in an activist moment when I was about 19. I let that go because there was a lot of deception with that.
Yeah.
Let that go. And so when I started to do theater with Quickstep, every story that we've ever put on stage has had to do with letting people know we're not putting up with the lies or, you know, the games. And so, you know, we try to sneak it in there. You know, when I'm teaching in high schools, yeah, we're gonna dance, but next week we're gonna sit down and we're gonna talk. So I can sneak a little bit of that in there for you because you're 16, 17, and nobody's taking care of that aspect for you. And so all of our shows, the show that you saw there was a duet, personal story of me and Quickstep, but how every time we would get interviewed by a journalist, they would flip the article for their agenda, you know, and not really going in deep to who Quickstep is or who I am. So we made that piece, and of course all the people who came to review it were like, well, I don't know what to write because I don't want to end up in your, you know, your next piece. But, you know, and that was something from like 2000, I don't even remember. But every show that we've done, we try to address something. Even if it's subtle or in your face, activism has to be a part of it because we're not seeing our stories on stage. We're seeing, you know, sometimes adaptations of Shakespeare, or we're seeing somebody's idea, you know, of what hip hop could be. I mean, right now, there's supposed to be, supposedly, a hip hop play on Broadway, Hamilton. But none of my people know about it. And I mean, I have to see it. But I'm like, really? There's a hip hop play on Broadway? Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
well, it's about Hamilton, so.
So it's using hip hop to tell this story, which still makes it hip hop theater, but it's just like, where's our story? Where's the story about the person who owns a laundromat? Where's the mother of 2 kids who has a great story? You know, where's a story that can, you know, capture the life and the challenges of a female dancer who was in Beat Street who happened to walk in the room right now. Peaches, you know, that's not Peach, good to see you, good to see you. Yes. You know, so because our stories aren't on there, we try to address them quickly, subtly, and just get it out, get it off our chest because, you know, we need it.
From a very young age, gave me a book about Muhammad Ali. And I think he was trying to tell me something. And I run with it, yeah? There's always something to say, you know? And one of the biggest problems I think with the community is that our voices are not heard. So for me, arts is the way to get these messages out. I don't know, the having fun part of hip hop culture for me is is really important. And when I make work and I write, I feel like I'm having fun when I'm calling out them corporate companies or ideas that are on some, you know, it's fun for me to talk about these things, you know what I mean? In relation to some of the work that I've done, lyrical theatre was purely about activism. I had a piece about police brutality called Cracked. No, a piece about police brutality called Copper, something like that. I had a piece, a solo, where I was using a gun. I'll describe it really briefly. I slowly walk into the stage space. There's a gun focused centrally. I reach down to touch it, and then I pick it up, and I just feel it. I feel its warmth. I feel it against my face. I feel its weight. And then I turn to the side, and this energy of this gun just takes me over, and I start playing like I'm in front of a mirror, and the spirit of the gun's taking me over. And the audience is laughing because I'm playing. And then I notice the audience laughing. And I just tuck the gun in. And I walk up to the audience, and I'm just waiting for them to laugh again. As soon as somebody laughs, I pull the gun out in their face. And then somebody else will laugh, and I'll pull it out in their face. Until I build up this energy where people realize that you have to shut up, or else I'm not going to stop pointing the gun in your face. Until I get on the stage and I'm just frustrated. And I bring the gun down to here, and I start masturbating the gun furiously until I shoot myself in the head. And that's the end of the piece. And for me, this piece was about gun violence in hip hop. The way in which this idea that the gun and this tool was what made you a better artist. Yeah? And it's not just restricted to hip hop, it was about the whole of society. The amount of guns in Hollywood is just ridiculous, you know? And the way in which people play with guns, the whole James Bond thing of shooting someone dead and then doing a punchline, haha, you know? And it's just denying what this really is. It's death, it's murder, it only brings negativity. So for me, it was really important to get that piece out in that way, because I wanted the audience to feel what it feels like to have a gun pointed in your face. I have had a gun pointed in my face, yeah? And it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke, do you know what I mean? And it felt horrible, and I don't want anybody to have to go through that. So part of my work is trying to heal.
Okay, mine would be personally to make a film using dance in the same way that they used to in the 1930s and 1920s, when the MGMs and the big studios used to make and be able to film dance really well. And dance, personally for me, when it's put in films, at least in Hollywood and in the mainstream film industry, isn't filmed very well. Personally, just from a physical point of view, that they like the scope and the size that the old studios used to have. And there are some directors like John M. Chu is a brilliant director. He knows how to capture movement. A lot of martial arts directors know how to capture movement really well, so it's dynamic and quick. But a lot of films, and we've all seen recent dance films, the one of which I've been in Europe, it's fine for what it is, but at the same time it's not. So I would like to make a dance film, number one, that means something, that is about real issues, like you said, about real stories, because there are so many stories. It's interesting what stories get told. And there are so many stories everywhere, from the people sitting right next to you, to your mum, your family. If you get speaking to someone, you can find out some amazing stories, so many of which deserve to be made into films, or at least for that story to be told in some way that people can hear it or witness it or access whatever it is that happened in that person's life. But to do that well with dance, using dance in the same way that in musicals they break into song when the emotion or the moment becomes too much, that dance is the only way to express this. Almost to do like a silent film, but with music, with like what I would consider dope music in whatever format that may be. But to do a whole film like that, and it can be done because you see it done in other formats. But again, hip hop is done for, okay, this is for the mainstream, this is for kids, this is for, and there is that part of it. There has to be that part that is for kids and is for entertainment, but there can also be the part that is high art, and that's what I feel that sometimes in the hip hop community we get skipped over when it comes to high art.
Okay.
Today,
So-
in Apple on stage, me, a little girl from Les Mureaux, you don't know what it means,
Yes.
and Les Mureaux, a small city, very, very far than Paris, and I have this opportunity to come here in New York and dance on stage at the Apollo, where James, Michael, I think it's too much for me. That's why I don't believe it. So I think I live my fantasy right now. So maybe after that, I think I have a secret, stupid fantasy that I have to do it before I stop dancing. Because as I told you, I saw this movie, Breaking.
Yes.
And it was my dream to do the, I don't know if you saw this movie,
Yeah.
the
We all saw
last show.
Yes.
Street people. When I was young, this piece was wow, and I want to do it.
Okay.
I want to do it. I want to do this. I want to choreograph
We'll
this
look
piece.
for it. We will come.
This piece with the break dancer and jazz dancer but same light, same costume, same everything. This is my
Okay.
other fantasy after
today.
After Saturday.
Okay.
I
We're
wish
there.
that question because
Yeah.
every dream that I've had, maybe I just don't sleep enough, but they're all real, man. You know, I've dreamt of this, touring a hip hop theatre show that is about peace, love, unity, and having fun. Yeah. The idealism of it all is just wow. We just did Charlotte the other day, and just to be able to go to a theatre and say, can you open your doors to the local hip hop community? Yeah, and then all of a sudden the local hip hop community get together, graffiti artists that never knew b-boys, DJs, and rappers that never connected before, and then just to see this explosion of joy, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I want to see. That's ultimately what is the best thing I could imagine happening. Hip hop bringing people together. That's the fantasy. I have no more.
Well, I'm sure there's more.
When you say fantasy, I almost feel like it's not going to happen. So I try not to use that word too
Okay.
much. But I think New York City deserves a hip hop show that sits. Blue Man Group, Stomp. You got some staple shows in New York City that are great, but we deserve a hip hop show, and it doesn't have to be on Broadway. Obviously, like Stomp and Blue Man Group are not on Broadway, but they're successful, and so we still need that. And so that would be an idea. It would be great if I can be involved in some way. I'm getting older, so I probably won't be able to dance in it, but it would be nice if I can see something like that sit. Our shows haven't toured too much. We've been in New York City a lot and, DC and stuff. But I think I would like to see something in New York City that can reach the masses, can work for the kids, but that also has an adult story. Because adults are people too. Really. So yeah, that would be an idea.
All right. Well, these.